Hi everyone, it's Skipsy M back again with part 3 of my PS3 collection in 2015. Now this is going to be the final part of the video. I've got another 30 games to show you, and that's pretty much it. So let's start off with the next game, and that is Nier. Now this is published by Square Enix, and I believe it's based on the Drakengard series. So I know, like, there was Drakengard 1 and 2 on the PS2, and most recently Drakengard 3 came out for the PS3, and this was like a sort of spin-off. And I remember this being sort of getting mediocre reviews at the time, but after a while it sort of gathered something of a cult following. So from that alone, I sort of decided to pick it up for fairly cheap, and yeah, I've not actually had a chance to play this one, but I look forward to it. Next up we have Splinter Cell HD Trilogy. This comes with the original Splinter Cell, Pandora Tomorrow, and Chaos Theory. Now, I haven't played any of these either. I played Conviction and Blacklist, I believe, was the most recent one. And I quite enjoyed those. I didn't love them, but they were decent. And I wanted to sort of give the original ones a try as well, and see how they compare to stuff like Metal Gear Solid and Hitman. So yep. Next up we have a couple of Tales games. Tales of Grace's F, which I haven't played, but I bought for like £15, I think, on Shop2 quite a while back. And I haven't unfortunately played it yet. Next up we have Tales of Exilia. This is the day 1 edition. Now this is the only one, apart from maybe Vesperia, which I played for a few hours, that I have played quite extensively. I'm up to the part where you go back to where you started at the beginning of the game. And that's pretty much why I left it off, because I was hoping to sort of do a lot of grinding and leveling up in order to not have too much of a difficult time with the last sort of segment of the game, and I unfortunately never got around to it. But it's pretty interesting. I think both Mila and Jude are kind of interesting characters. It's got a good supporting cast as well. And yeah, I think the fighting style is kind of interesting. So yeah, I look forward to beating it one day. And also Tales of Exilia 2. This is the Steelbook Day 1 edition. Obviously I haven't played this one because I haven't played finished the first one, so when I get around to it, I definitely play this one. Next we have Valkyria Chronicles. This is a tactical RPG, sort of like Advance Wars on the Game Boy Advance, if you remember that series. And this is set in a sort of fictional war, and it's quite engrossing actually. I've only played a few chapters, but it's quite sad when you lose a certain like soldier. Just like, it could be like a generic soldier and you lose it and you sort of feel bad for having it die. But yeah, it's a pretty interesting game, and it's one I want to beat. Whether I will, I don't know, because I'm not very good at strategy games. But yeah, I've heard nothing but good things about this game. Next up we have Sly Cooper Thieves in Time. Now this was the direct sequel from the first 3 games. This one developed by Sanzuru, who also developed the HD trilogy as well. And visually it looks quite nice. It sort of plays more or less the same. There's slight differences here and there. I've only done the first world so far, but I think it's pretty good. It's not as good as the original games, but it's decent for what it is. Next up we have The Saboteur, which is a third-person open-world game from Pandemic. I think this was actually their last game they ever produced. And yeah, it's got an interesting sort of colour palette where it's sort of when you start off, everything's very sort of film noir, sort of greyish, sort of black colour, and as you begin to take over Paris, the sort of world becomes more colourful again. And yeah, it's got a fairly interesting story. The voice acting is quite horrendous in places, especially from the main character, who has probably one of the dodgiest Irish accents I've ever heard in my life. So, but yeah, it's not bad from what I've played so far. I've only played it for a few hours. Next up, we have Motorstorm Apocalypse. Now, I did actually own all three of the Motorstorm games, and I sort of played all three, and this was the one that I enjoyed the most. So I really liked the whole track design of the game, and sort of random events that would happen, like a plane crashing, for example, and you trying to it's sort of coming like on top of you, and you trying to avoid it and stuff like that. It's really really intense, and yeah, it's got 3 difficulty modes, each with its own sort of story, which is okay. Yeah, it's not bad. I would like to see at least like a digital re-release on PS4, because I feel that the multiplayer. I feel the PS4 needs a good multiplayer racing game, and I feel that this one would be definitely adequate. You know, if not like a proper sequel. Next up, we have Resident Evil Revelations. Now, I have actually beaten the second one a few weeks ago, and I really enjoyed it. I feel that it improved a lot on this one in terms of first of all, the dodging mechanic. I didn't really like the dodging mechanic in this game at all. It just felt very random, and sort of very luck-based as well. The other thing was the lack of checkpoints in this game. It's like if you die, you start right back at the beginning of the episode again, and I wasn't a big fan of that. I feel, especially when you go out and try and explore and get like weapons that you haven't found, then you die and you have to do that all over again. That kind of ticked me off a little bit. But other than that, I feel it's a pretty decent game. It's I've only played up past what I like to call the Mayday boss on the boat, and yeah, it's not bad. It's a nice sort of trip back to the Resident Evil series roots, basically. If you weren't a fan of like 5 or 6, then you'd probably like this, and I think you'd probably like the sequel as well. Next up, we have Ghostbusters, the video game, and this is a third-person action game, and it's almost like the Ghostbusters 3 we never got in at the pictures, and it's got a very surprisingly good story. I didn't expect it was going to be as good as it was. And you play as like an unknown sort of rookie, and you're sort of hanging out with the original crew, and yeah, you're sort of, there's a lot of comebacks from particular monsters like the Marshmallow Man, the Slimer, and yeah, it's pretty fun. There are certain parts where you're in sort of narrow hallways, and it sort of gets a little bit tedious at times, but these sections, like when you're fighting the Marshmallow Man on top of like a skyscraper, is pretty damn cool. So yeah, it's not a bad game. Next up, we have Lollipop Chainsaw. This is from Suda51 and Grasshopper Games, Grasshopper Manufacturing, I should say. Now, I was also a big fan of Shadows of the Damned. I actually prefer that game as opposed to this one. You play as Juliet Starling, I believe it is, who's like a cheerleader, and her family is like, they're they're all sort of zombie slayers, or zombie hunters, I should say. And all of a sudden there's like a zombie outbreak, and you basically trying to take all of them out in order to sort of save the world, really. Yeah, that sort of cliche thing. But yeah, it's got a lot of really good humour to it. I'm not a huge fan of the combat system though. I feel that if someone like Platinum Games had done something like this, it would have been awesome. But here it's solid, but a little bit unspectacular in my opinion. But it's still an entertaining game nonetheless. Next up we have 3D Dot Game Heroes. This is basically a sort of Lego meets original sort of Legend of Zelda, and that's pretty much this game. But yeah, it's really fun. The sort of sprites and the sort of stop motion mechanics with the gameplay of this is it's really charming to watch, and it's very traditional RPG like Legend of Zelda, as I said, and yeah, it's really fun. It's like customizable as well, as you can see. You can create your own heroes and like modify it however you want. You get like a giant asshole, which if you level it up enough, it can take over the entire sort of like field draft. And yeah, it's pretty good. It's quite short, but yeah, it's fun while it lasts. Next up we have Katamari Forever. Now I don't know if this is sort of a remake of We Love Katamari. I know it technically isn't, because it's got a sort of new storyline. But a lot of the levels I played, and I went back and played We Love Katamari on the PS2, and a lot of the levels seem very similar. I don't know if anyone notices that. But yeah, the game's really fun. It looks absolutely beautiful in high definition now, and you play as the prince, and your job is to sort of roll up anything your dad sort of wants you to do, and do it like sort of roll certain items, a certain number of items, or sort of fill up as much as you can in a certain amount of time. Sort of very sort of basic gameplay, but no, definitely very fun as well. So next up we have Demon's Souls. I like to call it, I prefer to call it Demon's Souls, but I always forget that S there. It's like Demon's Souls. But yeah, this is well, the start of From Software's successful Soul series, and most recently released Bloodborne. Probably my favourite game in that series. This one is very basic, sort of bare bones in terms of like the stuff you can do in it. Like in the Soul series, it's very open world, and you can traverse between each world anytime you want, really. With Demon Souls, it's very different. You sort of have to go from the start of the level to defeating one of the bosses, and that's how you clear the level. Otherwise, like, you continuously die and have to start over and over and over again. And yeah, it's probably the toughest entry in the series. I've beaten 3 of the bosses, 2 on the first world and the first one on the second world. And I've sort of pussied out, like, trying to go any further, really, because I don't know if I'm sort of level up enough or I'm skilled enough in order to do it. But I will get back to it at some point, because having beaten Bloodborne and absolutely loving it, it's kind of given me this desire to go back to this. So, but yeah, it's a really good game. I can understand why people enjoy this one. So, okay, next up we have Tekken 6. I've loved every single Tekken game up to this one, and yeah, I'm really enjoying this one too. The sort of arcade mode is still there, and the sort of wacky sort of stories of the Mishima family is still there. and I just love like clearing each character's like arcade sort of story, and finding out what happens. As you know, as crazy as a lot of them turn out to be, I just really find that entertaining. It's why I like Mortal Kombat as well, because it doesn't take itself too seriously, and you get to find out like what happens with each character, which is really cool. And yeah, I've got a new sort of Tekken Force mode, which they've sort of really fleshed out for this entry, and it's 2-player as well, and yeah, it's pretty fun. Next we have Tekken Hybrid. Now this has Tekken Tag HD. That was originally released on the PS2. We have like a sort of prologue for Tekken Tag 2, and also a movie called Tekken Blood Vengeance, which I've not actually seen, but I've heard it's really, really funny, like Resident Evil style, unintentionally funny. So I look forward to watching that. I've not actually, I did play a little bit of Tekken Tag. I wasn't a huge fan of it, but yeah, I thought I'd pick it up, you know, because it's part of the Tekken series, so I thought, why not? So. Next up, we have the Prince of Persia trilogy. I can't even talk today. It comes with Prince of Persia: Sands of Time, Warrior Within, and Two Thrones. Now, the Sands of Time I absolutely love. It's probably one of my favourite games that I've ever played. Really, really entertaining dialogue. The ending was kind of weak. Not the actual ending cutscene, but the actual final boss fight, I should say. But other than that, I absolutely adored it. Warrior Within, I absolutely hated because it kind of took what was good about the first game and kind of tore it out of the script, and made it really dark and really edgy just for the sake of being like cool, and I didn't really like it that much. Two Thrones I never played because I thought it was pretty much going to be the same as Warrior Within, but apparently they sort of went back to sort of what made Prince of Persia so good. So I might play that one day. But overall, I have sort of mixed feelings about this series. But I will never forget Sands of Time. That one's absolute masterpiece. Next up, we have DuckTales Remastered. Now this was the original NES game brought back to life by WayForward, who've also made A Boy and His Blob on the Wii. That was another pretty good remake. And, or remaster I should say. And yeah, it's a 2D platformer, and it's kind of interesting. You sort of play as Scrooge McDuck, and you use his cane, like cane, to sort of bounce around and bounce on enemies and sort of hit stuff in order to like find treasure and all that. So and yeah, it's not the longest game in the world, but I thought it was really fun. The music, especially, is fantastic, and they really WayForward really did a fantastic job in reimagining the music for the remastered version of this. And although I feel that the Moon, I kind of prefer the NES version because it's a lot more sort of. I don't know how to say it. I feel that they sort of overcooked the remastered version of the Moon track, as they sort of put too many instruments in there, and it sort of lost the sort of purity of the original, I felt. But other than that, I absolutely adored this remake. Next up, we have Dead Rising 2. Now, I did enjoy Dead Rising 1, although I had to play through it a couple of times in order to level up and do as much as I could. But I never liked the fact that the civilians were absolutely useless. So when I came into when I got Dead Rising 2, I was very apprehensive. But I did play. Was it Dead Rising Zero? I believe it was. It was like a sort of demo slash arcade title. That was like a prologue for this game, and to my absolute shock, the civilians were actually kind of helpful, and it kind of carried over to this game, and my sort of negative feelings about the first one kind of went away with this one, and yeah, I absolutely love this game. I've pretty much done almost all the side quests. Bear in mind, this was the 360 version. I got rid of that version and rebought this on the PS3 because I'm a trophy whore. And yeah, it's a really fun game. If you've got the ability to play online, it has co-op as well, which is even more fun with a friend. It's still good as a single player game, but with a friend, it's even more enjoyable. Next up we have Binary Domain. Now this was actually created by the same director anyway, behind the Yakuza series. And it really shows as well. There's a lot of good interesting characters in this, and at first it's kind of like the generic sort of third person shooter, but over time you sort of start to really appreciate each character in this game, and it's kind of hard to pick like certain characters for certain missions. It sort of goes between like a Gears of War to sort of Mass Effect sort of hybrid, and yeah, it's really fun. I was genuinely surprised by this. I didn't expect it to be as good as it was, and yeah, I hope one day there's a sequel. The only thing I didn't like was the whole voice commands, and the although I didn't actually use a headset, you can also use like button prompts as well. But I felt like the whole voice command system wasn't really worth it. It felt like a sort of unnecessary gimmick, just shoehorned into the game. And I feel that without it, it would have been even better. But yeah, Binary Domain, still a good game. Next up we have Batman Arkham Asylum and Batman Arkham City. This is a Game of the Year edition. Two absolutely superb games. I can't wait for Arkham Knight when that comes out. For me, I feel that Arkham Asylum had the more interesting story, but Arkham City had the better sort of open world and the more refined gameplay. Although I do feel that Asylum had the better shocks also. The whole sort of Scarecrow segments especially were absolutely masterful, and there were certain parts where I generally didn't know what the hell was going on, and that's why I loved it so much. Arkham City I absolutely loved as well, mainly because the boss fights were the only major weak point in Arkham Asylum, and they kind of rectified it in Arkham City. The battle with Mr. Freeze especially is probably one of the best boss fights I've ever encountered, just because you have to learn the game properly in order to win that boss fight. So yeah, two fantastic games, and I can't wait for the third in the Rocksteady Batman trilogy. Next up we have Far Cry 3, a fantastic open world first person shooter. Probably one of the best villains of all time in Vars. Really gets into your head, and the dialogue really is really sharp and really meaningful. The only disappointment is that he leaves the party too early. Let's put it that way, and it's kind of disappointing because the sort of game goes sort of slightly downhill after that, but it's still a fantastic experience. It blows Far Cry 2 out of the water. I didn't really think much of Far Cry 2 at all. And this generally surprised me how good it was over the over the last two games. So yeah, Far Cry 3, absolutely fantastic. Not as good as Blood Dragon, but still good. Next up we have Deus Ex Human Revolution. This is the director's cut version. And this is a first-person stealth game. You can play it as more of an action title, but I've not had the greatest success with that. You play as Adam Jensen, who's become like a augmented sort of, I guess you could say like cyborg, I guess, sort of half human, half robot, I guess. And your goal is to exact revenge on the people who took you out in the first place, and really interesting story. The gameplay is fantastic. It's a variety of different powers you can use. I personally like the power where you can sort of jump off a building and sort of swoop down. It's like I always thought that was really cool. I would just like mess around for hours just doing that. But yeah, really good game, and I can't wait for the sequel that's just recently been announced. I forget what it's called, Mankind something. I can't remember, but I'll probably make a note of it in the video description somewhere. But yeah, Deus Ex Human Revolution, fantastic game, and I can't wait for the sequel. Next up we have Saints Row 2. Yeah, I wasn't really familiar with the first game. I just bought 360 like a year beforehand, and this came out, and my friends at the time absolutely adored this game. And we sort of played GTA 4 as well, and I was kind of disappointed in that because it sort of lost the, as I said in the previous video, the sort of fun factor the old games had. And I played this, and it sort of reminded me of what that used to be like. And yeah, it's a really enjoyable third-person open world game. Like, you know, I guess it was still sort of a GTA clone at this point, and then with the third game, it sort of became its own thing. But yeah, really fun. Great for co-op if you have like someone to play online with, and really entertaining. The story is kind of like your typical take over these certain gangs and rise to the top, and then something happens, and then you have to sort of fight back. You know the drill if you played the GTA before. Next up we have Vanquish. This is like sort of special, all these special covers that you have. I'll take that off because it's a little bit distracting. There we go, that's better. This is another game from Platinum Games. This is another game from Shinji Mikami, and absolutely superb. It's weird, it actually came out the same week as Fallout New Vegas, and everyone thought that this game was going to be a distant memory in like a few months. And actually, for me, I actually enjoy this a lot more than Fallout New Vegas personally. It's not the longest game in the world. You can beat it in like 3 to 5 hours. But there's a lot of interesting trophies and achievements you can get through like replay value, and yeah, I love the ability to sort of power slide as you can see there. And yeah, it's a really entertaining game. There's a lot of one-hit deaths, but because this game's so short and it's very fast, that you don't really notice it that much. So yeah, Vanquish, probably one of the hidden gems of the last generation, and I feel more people should give this one a go. Okay, 3 games left. First up we have Yakuza 3. Now I spoke about Yakuza 4 in the previous videos, and Yakuza 3 I have beaten along with the previous 2. And I would probably say I don't I'd probably say the first one's my favourite, but after that I'd definitely say this one's a close second. Because of the enhancements that they made to the game. Graphically, the game looks amazing. It's very much like GTA meets Shenmue, I guess you could say. You play as Kazuma Kiryu, and in this particular game, he sort of has quit the Japanese sort of mafia gang wars, I guess you could say, and has ended up on this orphanage on a beach, and sort of taking his time to sort of take care of all the orphans, and doesn't really want to be involved with gangland crime or anything, and then it turns out that the orphanage is going to be sort of closed down and replaced by like an airport, and that's when Kazuma decides to take action, and then sort of back in the sort of swing of things, back in the sort of gangland sort of crime, and is trying to sort of make things right again. And yeah, it's a really, really good game. Probably one of my favourites on the PS3. Probably one of my favourite series in general, even though I haven't beaten the fourth one. And I can't wait to play the fifth one when it's finally released, albeit digitally, which kind of ticks me off a little bit, but I'd rather play it digitally than not at all. But yeah, Yakuza 3, fantastic. Okay, next up we have Heavy Rain. This is the second game from Quantic Dream. Well, the second game that I played. I played Fahrenheit, and then I played this, and then I played Beyond Two Souls. And yeah, I probably say it's my, along with Fahrenheit, it's sort of my joint favourite, I guess you could say. You play as 4 different characters, and it's more... whereas Fahrenheit was very sort of supernatural, this is more like a sort of crime, sort of thriller type game, where one of the characters, Ethan Mars, his son goes missing, and as the story intertwines, you realise that not all is as it seems, and you're as Ethan, you're trying desperately to find your son, and a reporter gets involved, an FBI agent, and a former officer who's all trying to sort of figure out what's going on, and where his son is. So yeah, it's a really, really entertaining game. Not a lot of gameplay involved, but it's more of a narrative-driven game. And if you like games like The Walking Dead or Wolf Among Us, or even Fahrenheit, then you'll definitely enjoy this one. Okay, and the final game is South Park: The Stick of Truth. This is my only imported game on the PS3, and I'm glad I did, because they did cut out a lot of certain segments in the European release, so I ended up getting an import version. And it's an absolutely superb game from Obsidian. It's a turn-based RPG in the world of South Park, basically, and there's a lot of really interesting references to the show, and a lot of in-jokes if you're a fan. I'm a huge fan myself, and it's a really superb game. Probably one of my favourite games of 2014, and I'd love to see more of it, albeit, you know, either with DLC or even like a direct sequel. But I don't know if that's going to happen or not. I hope so, but seems unlikely at this point. But if you've not played this game, I highly recommend it. It's one of my personal favourites of recent years, and yeah, if you're a fan of South Park, this is pretty much a no-brainer. So yeah, South Park: Stick of Truth, fantastic game. Okay, and that's it for all my PS3 games. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching all 3 parts. I hope you enjoyed it. And this is Skip to the End signing off, and I'll see you soon for another collection video one day. So take care, everyone. Bye bye.